All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, just like Oregon State and Washington State showed the departing members of the Pac 12 last year, the Mountain West is now showing Oregon State and Washington State that they are not going to go quietly either. So we've seen and we know that Oregon State and Washington State are attempting to rebuild the once proud Pac 12. And so far, their rebuilding efforts have come at the expense of the Mountain West, as we've seen San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State, Colorado State, and Utah State all leave the Mountain West to join them. But as we have seen, the Mountain West is not going away quietly as the money that they have received from the Pac 12, and we're talking about in the area of $100 million now. This money that Oregon State and Washington State received from the departing members of the Pac 12 is now being used as by the Mountain West to try to sweeten the pot, and they have sweetened the pot to keep the likes of Air Force and UNLV in their league. So, what have we seen? We've seen UNLV have talks, deep talks with the Pac 12, and we've also seen the American Athletic Conference have their eyes on Air Force. We saw the Pac 12 go after some of the Mountain West's biggest guns. As a possibility of dissolving that league was there, but now we are seeing the Mountain West fighting back and fighting back hard. Now you look at two conferences, two separate conferences. Both of them have 7 members. Each one needs one more by 2026. Or let me rephrase that. The Mountain West technically needs 2 more because Hawaii is not a full member. Okay, but the Pac-12 definitely needs one more. Now, we've seen the Pac 12 swing for the fences in trying to save their league. They missed out on getting Memphis, UTSA, Tulane, and South Florida to leave the American. They could not produce the numbers on a television deal. And on top of that, a lot of it came down to the finances as far as paying for a buyout. Okay. But, we saw the Pac 12 circle back to UNLV. But at this point, the Mountain West was able to up the ante in order to keep the Rebels. You got Teresa Gold representing the Pac 12 as their commissioner, and then Gloria Navarez representing the Mountain West as their commissioner. Of course, on the surface at the beginning, it looked like everything was happy with the scheduling agreement this year between Washington State, Oregon State, and the Mountain West. But Oregon State and Washington State weren't happy with that because that was something that was negotiated by now former Pac 12 commissioner George Kliakoff. Okay. And of course, the Mountain West is not happy because it's basically turned into something where, hey, Oregon State and Washington State, in their minds, have been poaching our members. So you look at this thing right now. You got 7 full-time members for the Pac-12. You've got 6 full-time members and a part-time member committed to the Mountain West. And of course, the question is going to be what's next for both of these leagues. I brought it up before. Some people have disagreed with me, some people have not. But, I said this from the jump. What about a full-time merger between both of these leagues? And I know, and I totally understand and respect, why some people don't want it to happen. But at this point, if you're both leagues, I think it's your best option going forward. I'll tell you like this for the Pac 12. I will give credit where credit is due. They were swinging for the fences, and they have been swinging for the fences in regards to turning this thing around. And I know that, they didn't want all of the members of the Mountain West. And of course, there was a possibility that the league would dissolve. And they figured, hey, we can just get some of these schools to join us without having to deal with the payouts. I think if you're the Pac 12 and that was your game plan, you needed to go for as many schools as possible to go out there and make it happen. I give them all the credit in the world. You went and got Fresno State. You went and got Boise. You went and got Colorado. You went and got San Diego State as well. Maybe, just maybe, if, and this is hypothetically speaking, if in that same vein, the Pac-12 just said, you know what? Let's go get Air Force and Colorado, pardon me, Air Force and UNLV as well. Uh, then you get six members. Then you have more leverage uh, than the Mountain West because it's one of those where if you're the Pac-12, you put the Mountain West on the ropes, but you still allowed them to have a pulse. And now that pulse being the money that you gave them in order to survive. And I think that along with the fact that the deal or trying to get, Memphis and others to leave the American, fell through because it's one of those, if you're going to be all in, you have to be all in. And you know that you're not going to get Memphis to join your league by themselves. Okay. So if you really wanted Memphis, Tulane, UTSA in South Florida, you had to do whatever it took to make that deal work. And it sounds like it didn't, as far as the finances of a potential television deal, and then on top of that, the buyouts from the American Athletic Conference. So when it's all said and done, if you're both of these leagues, you don't want to sit back and get desperate because now you're hearing about possibly, likes of Sacramento State and North Dakota State maybe moving up from the FCS level to the FBS level. No disrespect to those schools, but it's one of those where I feel like if you're going to do this, go out there and do it right. Because sake of argument, let's say the Pac-12 got the five schools that they currently have from the Mountain West, and then you go out there and get that quartet of schools from the American Athletic Conference. You've basically now positioned yourself as the premier group of five league, if you will, in college football. And when it's all said and done, you basically have gone out there and all but, given yourself a free clear to get to the college football playoff because you can sell kids on the fact that, hey, you know what, as a top group of five league, you know what, we're going to go out there and compete for a spot in the college football playoff. Not only that, but the schools are going to go out there and compete because the revenue that they would get from the college football playoff. Granted, it's not going to be on the same level as the big boys of college football, but nonetheless, it is, hypothetically speaking, an option. So, I think both of these leagues are now getting desperate because you're hearing rumors, and they're only rumors, as far as the Pac-12 bringing in UConn as a football member. You're also hearing rumors about, the Mountain West looking at some football only members from the MAC. And to me, I think all of that just simply screams of desperation. Both of these great conferences are now going to court against one another. The Pac-12, feels like they shouldn't have to pay the additional poaching penalties. The Mountain West is saying, hey, you know what? This is ironclad, and yes, you do. And instead of wasting that money in court, why don't you just take the time and work together to try to work this out? But again, me from the jump, I felt like just a full merger would have been the best thing for everybody involved. I totally understand, why it hasn't worked out. But at this point, I think, this is something that should be revisited. Easier said than done because there are a lot of hurt feelings on both sides of the room in regards to this one between both the Mountain West and Pac 12. This situation is going to get worse before it gets better because if you're the Pac 12 and you've been trying to rebuild this league, well, where do you go from here? Because there aren't that many, or there really aren't any other players at the table that are going to go out there and be able to help your solution right now. The best teams from the American are staying in the American. Uh, the best options from the Mountain West are committed to that league. So where do you go from here? This is going to be very interesting for both of these leagues going forward. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And unfortunately, this is the business side of college football. And I know that some people are maybe get upset at both of these leagues for what's going on, but at the end of the day, it's a trickle down effect, and some people don't, some of us don't realize it, but when one or two schools leaves one league for another, it's a move that affects about anywhere between 25 to 30 other schools. We've seen it, in the past where Big East schools went to the ACC. We've seen it, with the expansion of the Big Ten, the expansion of the SEC, and now the Pac-12 looking for survival. How many different schools are affected by these moves? It's the unfortunate side of college football. This realignment thing is not going away anytime soon, because I tell you what, if some of these teams have success in the new Pac-12, if some of these teams have success in the new Mountain West, if some of these teams continue to have success in the American, I guarantee you that at the same time, they're going to be looking for a ticket to maybe the ACC. They're going to be looking for a ticket to the Big 12. And then on top of that, who's to say what happens when the next domino falls in college football, because that next domino is falling soon. We just have to wait and see what happens between Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC. And then, of course, when the television deals are up, the next round of negotiating for that. But nonetheless, these two great leagues are at a stalemate. It's unfortunate. The only people at this point that are going to get rich are going to be the lawyers. When you think about college football, you tune in for the battles on each and every Saturday afternoon in the fall. But nonetheless, it's going to be about the courtrooms, and it's going to be about the people in the suits that are going to determine the fate of both the Mountain West and Pac-12. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Next 100, what's going on? Haven't heard from you in a couple of days. It's always good to hear from you, my man. Yeah, I did hear that news. That is a big shocker out of the world of the National Basketball Association. I'm just waiting to see, like the rest of us, when that gets finalized. It looks like it's going to happen sooner rather than later, but that will definitely be something to talk about more than likely tomorrow. But nonetheless, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off and saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.